Hey, quick shout out to Anchor for making podcasting easy. Everyone always wants to know how to get started in podcasting. And the answer is Anchor. Anchor. They make it easy to get started with step-by-step instructions on how to record, edit, and release your episodes. Get your voice out there today by downloading the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. Hey guys, welcome back to Tea Time with Tea. I'm your host, Teresa, and today we have our second guest on the show, Joshua Guzman. A little bit about Josh. Josh is 32 years old. He is currently working as an attorney in New York City. He graduated from Stony Brook University, and then he went on to law school. Amazing.
Yep. So amazing.
Do you want to add anything else about yourself, Josh?
No, that's fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Sure.
Josh, so as you know, or may not know, the show is about motivation and people that are motivated, what drives them.
So why do you have me on?
Because I feel that you are a motivated person. Do you consider yourself a motivated person?
I would say in some respects, yes, in some respects, no. But I think the traditional sense of being a quote unquote motivated person is, somebody who's, cutthroat and willing to do anything to climb the corporate ladder and, make as much money as possible. And though in that respects, I'm not motivated to achieve that. I am motivated, in other respects to leave my mark on the world or at least, leave my mark on different people, in whatever respect I can to make a positive impact in their life.
The reason I had you on this show is because we had a conversation, me, you, and your girlfriend, Caroline. So as you know, me and Caroline, we're both in our mid-20s right now. And we were kind of complaining about our jobs and what we're doing and kind of trying to figure out, do we want to move up in the corporate ladder? Our status, our title, the money that we're making. We were complaining about it all because we felt that we weren't accomplished and we felt that time was running out for us. And you kind of turned to us and said, hey, when I was 26 years old, I only had $200 in my bank account. And for me, that's something I've never known about you. So I kind of wanted to know, how did you go from having $200 in your account to becoming a lawyer?
Well, I would say when I was 26, I just graduated law school, so I just became a lawyer. And I got a job, Inhouse, and for those of you that don't know, when you graduate law school, you usually start off at a law firm, but I was lucky enough to get a pretty good and secure job in-house working for Canon USA, which means you work directly for a company instead of working at a law firm, which is way more tedious, a lot more hours, and way more, I guess, traditionally cutthroat and way more stressful.
Is there way more money in that?
I would say the money is probably, there is a greater opportunity to make a lot of money in a law firm, because you're not salaried, right? And no matter how much the company makes, they might give you a nice bonus, but you're not a shareholder. When you work at a law firm, you have the opportunity to make partner and essentially become a shareholder in the law firm. And if you guys make a big case, you make a lot of money. But when I was 26, going back to your question, I just graduated. I got a job in-house. I was salaried attorney, and I I just started working. So I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account, and it was tough for a few years. And I remember probably, just going to a lot of weddings and like having to be cautious on what I spent or even what my gift was during these weddings, because I literally only had a few $100s in my bank account. If I gave it a large gift, I wasn't going to make rent.
Right.
So, that was tough. So when I heard you guys talk about, your age and where you are and, all these things, it's like, all right, guys, like I was there. I understand the struggle. I understand the the stress, but trust me, if you, remain motivated and you stay open and positive to incoming opportunities, things will change, and they can change in the blink of an eye.
Do you feel that money motivates you, or was it something else?
Like, obviously money motivates you, especially after going to law school, when you're carrying all this student loan debt. You want to get out of it. You don't want to be that person who's paying off your student debt loan into your 50s and 60s and 70s, right? So in that sense, it motivates you. You want to get out of it. You want to have freedom, right? I think money motivates people. Most people they don't care about, not that they don't care, but they want freedom. They want to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. And money allows them to do that. But there's only a certain amount of money, if, the difference between $10 million and $100 million, in terms of happiness, what makes you happy is really not that different. I know it's a $90 million difference, but you'll still be able to do what you want to do with $10 million, right? You don't think so? What would you do with $10 million?
I mean, I could think of a few things.
Yeah?
Yeah, but I think it comes back to the point of, like, I don't think money buys happiness. It does give you freedom.
And I think the freedom is what makes you happy, right?
Essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, if
you're
you were...
right. You're right.
If you were able to do what you want to do and not say, okay, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, or, whatever time you wake up, say like 7 o'clock in the morning, I have to wake up, I have to go on a subway, I have to do X, Y, and Z. That makes you unhappy because you don't want to do that.
It absolutely does make you unhappy. And that's where I kind of feel a lot of people get stuck. So they're in this 9-to-5 job where they're making X amount. Whatever, they're making 6 figures a year, but they're miserable. And to me, I'm like, I would rather sit here and do something I love, and essentially I feel like that would make me happy. But then it's like, okay, but then I don't have any money. What do I do?
Yeah, but that's if you had a job that allowed you to kind of do what you want to do, within limits, I'm sure you'd still have to perform some task, right? To make the money. But if you had that job and it only paid you $50,000 and you had no other debt obligations, and you can travel when you want to, you could see your family when you want to, you wanted to whatever you wanted to do that day, you wake up and you could just watch Saturday morning cartoons in your underwear and eat a box of Fruit Loops. Whatever makes you happy. I think that would make you happier than having that $150,000, $200,000 job where you're required to, show up 9 to 7 or whatever it is and travel in a crowded subway and spend time away from your loved ones and whatever it is. Even though on paper, you're making more money, most people would consider you more successful. Are you though? You're not. And I think tying back to this whole motivation thing, it's kind of like the question: what makes you motivated? Is it happiness or money?
Well, I have another question to you that ties into this as well, because you're a lawyer, a successful lawyer, or on the path to being a successful lawyer, would you say?
I think it depends on just what we were talking about before. You know, like, I think most people, when you say successful lawyer, most people are going to say, oh, this guy wins a lot of cases and he has a huge salary. You know, that's not necessarily the case, but what I was able to do was take the opportunities that presented themselves to me and make the most out of them so that I have financial freedom and I can pay off my loans whenever I want and have a big chunk extra to do the things that I want to do. And if that means that, hey, you know, I still have enough energy in my young 30s to continue pursuing a career path as a lawyer, a more traditional career path as a lawyer, maybe that's it. But maybe it's something completely different. I think what would consider me successful now is that exactly that I have the freedom to choose. And I think that's, you know, tying back to what we were talking about before. The freedom to choose is probably what keeps me motivated and what I would consider to be successful.
So right now you are in that position where you're free to work as a lawyer and still have freedom to do other things.
Yeah. I think this, you know, ties back to that whole in-house versus law firm thing that I was talking about earlier. Generally, when people work at a law firm, they are tied to all these cases. They have to be there from 9 to whenever they get their work done, which is probably 9 at night. And it's a tough life. It's a very tough life. When you work in-house, it gives you more freedom because it's more traditional 9 to 5. I'm sure this is going to vary from job to job,
right?
Obviously, but generally speaking, it allows you more freedom. And, you know, once you leave work at an in-house job, you're not taking that work home with you as much as you would if you worked at a law firm.
And I agree with you on that. There are jobs that are out there. For example, a personal trainer. They work their own hours.
Yeah.
But sometimes their job is still it's exhausting. Working is exhausting, especially if you're working where you don't really want to work.
Yeah.
And for you,
but also, would you say, sorry to cut you off, but would you say that, like, a personal trainer might be just totally happy doing what they do, right? But do you think that society would consider that successful?
That's a good question.
Right? Because you're just a personal trainer. And, you know, what's the most amount of money that you're going to make as a personal trainer? Maybe $80,000 a year if you're really good.
And I think everyone just has their own definition of success.
Yeah, but...
And it's just like, so I might look at that and be like, oh, that person isn't successful. And I'm not a judgmental person, guys. But really, like, but then you could look at the same trainer and be like, oh my God, this guy is great. He has his own schedule. He makes so much money. Like, I admire that guy. I want to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he could be, you know, making a decent amount of money and he has no debt and he's working his hours. He's doing what he loves. And if he wants to take that weekend trip down to Miami, you know, he could just do it. And there's no boss, you know, telling him, no, you can't. So, yeah, like, I would consider that successful, but I think it would be safe to say that a lot of people would shy away from calling that successful, depending on their age, because I'm sure if you're like 25 and you make $80,000 a year and you have that's pretty successful. But if you're in your 30s, I think people would be like, I don't know. I'm just making assumptions, but
that, like, you should be doing more.
You should be doing more, yes, or whatever it is. Like, I don't know. But yeah.
How do you feel about people that are starting over? For example, I met this woman the other day she's 40 years old. We were just having a conversation. It was like in the nail salon. And she said to me, she goes, I'm studying for my real estate license now, but 2 years ago, I wanted to become a nurse. My kids are older now, so I went back and I got a nursing degree. And now she's a nurse. She's a nurse studying for real estate.
Did you know what
But
she was
she's
doing
40.
before that?
And before that, she was just a stay-at-home mom, taking care of the kids.
Okay. Yeah. I think, being a stay-at-home mom, not that I know from experience, but
I don't know.
I'm sure it's a tough job, but it's a job, right? Like you have to take care of a lot of things, and when your kids leave the nest, she still has that drive, passion, and energy to put somewhere, and that's just where she chose to do it, probably. So there's things that she's probably been interested in doing, so good for her.
I think so too. I feel that a lot of people kind of get stuck because they don't know which direction in life they want to go or what they want to do. And I just kind of think people get lost. And I feel it might be because of lack of motivation. And I want to circle back for a second of like the 9-to-5 job thing. There are people out there who work a 9-to-5 and then they get exhausted and they go home and they just want to have dinner, watch a show, go to bed. You are in that position where you do have a 9-to-5 job, but you go home. Or maybe I don't know this. When you go home, what do you do?
It depends, obviously, but yeah, I'm not so mentally drained from the day-to-day of work that I just I just want to go to sleep. Yeah, but if it's a workout day, I'm big into I have a lot of different interests, so I'll either work out or watch a bunch of things that I find interesting on YouTube, or but I'm still learning and engaged, and I'm not kind of I'm not looking to get to zone out. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where you're getting at, right? Where it's like people want to go home and they want to decompress. And when I go home, even though I still might be watching something, whatever, but I'm engaged.
Right.
And I think there's a difference there where, I'm still learning and I'm still I'm not tired, but some people, they need to go home, and the stress of the 9-to-5 and the commute and all that stuff.
So you don't think it's like a lack of motivation to do other things?
No, I don't think it's a lack of motivation. I think it's stress, right? You could only deal with stress for so long. Some people are better at dealing with stress than others, but you can only stress out for so long until you just want to chill out, and that takes away energy from doing other things. And for some people, that's why they don't go to the gym. Maybe it's why they don't hang out with friends as much, or whatever it is, but it takes away from other aspects of your life that you would normally be engaged in.
Do you have things that you are stressed out about?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely human. So I stress.
I wonder sometimes.
Yeah. No, I know. I have this big giant head that kind of looks like an alien head.
Josh is actually a robot, guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you handle your stress?
Sometimes better than others. I dealt with a lot of anxiety in my 20s. Sometimes stressful situations were too much for me. They drive me, right? I don't want to be that person that's crippled by stress. So when I do get crippled by stress, because we all do, we're all gonna have that point where stress just becomes too much, and we have to shut it down and curl up in a ball and just lose ourselves in that moment.
Some people fall into that ball though.
Yeah,
they kind of just stay there.
Stay there,
and they can't get out of it.
Yeah. But with me, I think I know that I don't want to be there. So when I fall into those moments, I'm like, all right, how can I learn from it? I'm like, how can I prevent this? What is it that got me there? And what can I do to prevent getting there? And if I do get there, how can I handle it better, right?
Right.
I think that's just the best way to go about it, so that I'm not crippled by stress. There's this book that I'm starting reading. It's called Stress Without Distress by Hans Selye, and it's pretty much, I mean, the basics of it is that you want to have stress in your life, right? You want to have stress in your life.
That's the first time I'm hearing that.
No, well, think about it. Like, working out is a stress, right?
It might be a relief for some people, though.
Yeah, it's a relief, but working out is a stress. Doing a crossword puzzle is a stress. You know, it takes mental energy, right? Anything that requires energy is a stress. But you want to have stress without distress, right? So you want to do just enough that allows you to get bigger and stronger, so when those situations present themselves, you know how to handle them. So if you were to, you know, right now, I know you're strong, but if I were to bring you to a gym and say, here's 220 pounds, could you lift it?
But that wouldn't stress me out.
No, well, I'm saying if I put a 220 pound, you know, barbell on you, it'd fall into you, right? It'd crush you.
It will crush me, yes.
But if you started at, you know, 50 pounds and worked your way up.
Probably 25.
Yeah, okay, whatever. But you work your way up so that these new stressful situations become less distressful, if that makes any sense at all.
It does. I'm getting it a little bit. Yeah.
So, you know, for example, this podcast, it's stressful to do. But the more you do it, the less distress it'll bring you. Does that make any sense?
I agree with you 100%.
There you go.
Yes.
So it's like to say, like, if you want to do stand-up, you know, like, just go out and do it. Like, get that first one where you're nervous, get it out of the way. Get that distress out of the way. But it's still stressful. So in order to prevent stress, you have to go through stress.
I like that. I agree.
I agree too.
So Josh, since we're on the topic of stress and overcoming stress, I want to take you back in time for a second.
How far back?
Not too far back.
Okay.
Because you actually told me about this project that you worked on, and it was called Vibewire. Can you tell us a little bit about Vibewire?
Vibewire was an app that me, my brother, and a couple of friends were trying to develop. Essentially, the nuts and bolts of it was that it would give you insights on what you want to do with your nightlife. Where would you go and what's best suited for you? I think the original idea was that we would kind of show everybody what the bars were like at the moment, which was kind of impossible because you'd have to have like cameras there, and if it was whack, why would a bar show?
True.
You know, so then it just developed into like this souped up Yelp, but just for bars and clubs, where you would get all these additional metrics of like what was the best time to go, and what is the crowd like, and, you know, was it more of a bro crowd or a yuppie crowd or whatever it was, you know?
Right.
So so we initially didn't have any in-house development skills, right? So we hired like an Indian firm because that's all we could afford at the time.
Is that a jab at Indian people?
Yes. No, I'm kidding.
He's hurting my heart.
But a lot of Indians and like,
Josh!
you will get a lot of discount labor from India for development. So if you like,
Josh is pointing at me right now, guys, because I'm West Indian.
You're West Indian. That's different. But if
I'm charging Josh to do this podcast.
Listen, I'm browner than you. I could say this. No, I'm kidding.
But back to like,
So
you hired a firm.
We hired a firm in India because, you know, like, just, you know, they would do something for like $10,000 that an American firm wouldn't even look at if it was for $100,000, unless they got $100,000 deposit. So that, you know,
right,
you get a good sense of the price difference. But, you know, still a lot of money for, as we were talking about before. I didn't have a lot of money, and so we looked towards friends of ours to invest, and we ended up spending a lot of money, and it didn't go as we planned, right? Because when you're not the one developing your idea, it's difficult. So as we, like I said before, obviously you're aware of it. Jorge was aware of it. All of friends and family were aware of what we were doing, and for it to not go as planned was kind of like a slap in the face.
Right.
It kind of like said, "Hey, wake up, do something about this. Don't let this just fail without some additional effort on your part."
And you didn't let it fail.
Well, at the end of the day, it did fail, but I didn't just sit back and let it fail. So, as we were talking about earlier, like, I'm an attorney by trade. I have no coding experience and no experience in that world, or I didn't at the time. And I said, okay, well, if they couldn't do it, maybe I could get into it. And I just put a lot of time and effort into learning how to code Java, which is kind of like
it's a programming language.
It's a programming language which allows you to develop Android apps. Java is for Android, and I think it's like C something for Apple. Just that in itself just goes to show how poor my programming skills were at the time.
But you still went for it. You still tried it.
Yeah, like I put in a lot of hours. Like I put in a good 1,000 hours into learning and developing my version of the app. And for an attorney who had nothing there, I was able to develop an app which would detect your location, which is fairly easy, but then get the 10 nearest bars around you, zoom in perfectly within the parameters of those 10 bars,
right,
with you at the center, and then you were able to scroll. And like, it's something that took me, I remember it was the simplest little feature, but like the pins that drop on
right,
the map, the pins.
Yes.
So I wanted this feature where it would show you which pin it was that you were on at the time, because as I said, it would have the 10 nearest bars like showing, right? And each, like, you could only show, like, display one bar name at a time. So I wanted a feature where it would display the bar name and the pin of that bar would bounce
right
up and down to show you that this was the one. Until that took me about like 2 weeks just for that one feature.
I thought you were gonna say like 2 months.
2 weeks of like good, like, as I said, like I was working as an attorney at the time, so I didn't have like all day to do this. So I would research stuff at work when I had the time and opportunity to do that, then go home and code from like 7 to 11 at night, or even like sometimes like 2 in the morning, and then go to sleep and go back to work. And it was a tough experience, but I would, at the end of the day, as I said, the app failed, but I learned a lot from it. And that was that if you have the motivation and, the time, you can pretty much achieve
anything.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you want to do. I think a lot of people, they limit themselves and they say, no, I'm just a this, or I'm just a hairdresser, I'm just an accountant, or whatever it is, and like I have to stay within that world. But I think if you're motivated enough, you can really start, crossing into areas that you never thought you could, and fairly quickly. Like, I would say it took me 2-3 months to go from nothing to having something solid.
In terms of coding, or
yeah, and a lot of different areas. I think I would say that's a good, barometer is 2-3 months. Within 2-3 months, you could go from knowing nothing to being I wouldn't say proficient, but I would say having the bare necessary skills to become proficient.
Does that involve like just doing a little bit of whatever you're trying to work towards every single day? Like how, I mean, you did say when you started programming, you were doing it every day. You were going to work, then coming home.
Yeah, but it didn't
coding.
It didn't feel that way, right? Like I was truly motivated in the sense that it didn't feel like a job. I wanted to do it. And the more I learned, and once I was able to get that bouncing feature on those pins, you have to understand, like, a lot of coding is plug and place, right? Like copy and paste. There was no feature for that. There was nothing that I could go to some GitHub repository and say, like, that was a very novel thing that I did, at least, to my knowledge. I was very proud. I did something that
you couldn't have done before.
That I couldn't have done before,
yeah.
And it wasn't just a copy paste thing, which, like finding your location is very much copy paste, right? Like every app has that.
Right.
And it's not a novel thing. Like you don't reinvent the wheel. But with that aspect, when I achieved that, then it was like, okay, what else can I do? And then and I just kept going. As I said before, the app never took off, but at least I was able to achieve something new and novel to me.
Are you currently working on new apps or programming?
No.
What are you working on?
Definitely left that world behind. As you know, like I'm big into trading, whether it's Bitcoin or the traditional markets. I think that's probably more beneficial for my time as far as making money and doing things like that. I think when people were on this whole making an app craze, when the app stores just started, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was kind of like a home run thing, right? You swing for the fences. You
right.
Make a successful app, you sell it, and you made a ton of money, and you can retire. But you can't swing for the fences all the time. You got to make money somehow, right?
Right.
So isn't there anything in your life that you're like, okay, like this is kind of like a swing for the fences move? Like, say if it was acting or anything like that, like that's, you either make it big or
you don't.
Or you don't.
And I feel like acting, and I am an actress, it is something that's very difficult, and I feel like you have to have a lot of patience and persistence to go after it. And every role, every audition, you go big, you swing for the fences. It's all or nothing. And a lot of times you don't get it, but you have to keep going. You can't just give up. You just have to have that drive to want to keep going.
Yeah. But that's because when you get that role, or you get that, that big break, right? They call it that, the big break, right? Like,
right.
Because there really is it's a very difficult, I wouldn't say there is no path, but it's a very difficult path.
It's a difficult and long path.
To make a consistent living as an actor without that big break.
Right.
Right? So you're swinging for the fences. I think making an app is a similar thing, where you can make an app and it's more than likely not going to get the role. It's not more than likely not going to get bought by Facebook, but you're swinging for the fences. That's what you're aiming for.
Would you tell people don't swing for the fences?
No, I would say swing for the fences. Yeah. Like if you have the opportunity, definitely go for it. But I think there is a time and place when you're saying, okay, like I can't always just swing for the fences. Like,
right.
I have to
let it go.
Not let it go, but I have to sustain myself.
Okay.
Right? So that when the opportunities arise that I can swing for the fence, that I'm able to.
Right now you're swinging to the fences in Bitcoin?
I mean, I wouldn't say swinging for the fences.
You called it day trading?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunity there. Like I learned a lot about it. I think there's definitely opportunity there to make enough money that surpasses what money I would make on a salaried job for me. It's because I have the opportunity and the capital to do that. But I wouldn't say that everybody should just, become a day trader, because
Absolutely not.
if you only have like $500 to invest or whatever, like it doesn't, like, a 10% gain in a week is huge, but if you have a 10% gain in the $500 is $50, so it's not the same playing field. But I'm lucky enough to have that opportunity to at least try my hand at this.
And you started early in the game with day trading.
Well, yeah, and I think
kind of early.
I didn't start early in the game of day trading, but I started early in the game of investing in Bitcoin, and I think that just goes back to my counterculture mentality, where everyone was like, well, if you have $5,000, why don't you put it in your 401k or your Roth IRA or whatever it is, whatever traditional people are doing. I know that if I do that, I could only be as successful as traditional people, right? If I do what everyone else does, I will be as good as everyone else.
So you were thinking outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. So when I invested in Bitcoin back in 2014, it was, I looked into it. I didn't do it blindly. I looked into it. The idea sounded good to me. And I said, this is a risk that I'm willing to take, which is outside the box of what everyone think is normal and acceptable.
Do you think that's a quality that you have to be successful? Thinking outside the box?
Yeah. I would say it's almost absolutely necessary, because I think just from a definitional aspect of success is straying away from the average, right? And being better than the average. Because right now we would all be more successful because we have more things and better lives than people did in the 20s, right?
Right, more resources.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, people wouldn't consider themselves successful in today's day and age because they're part of the average. So you got to set yourself apart. And in order to set yourself apart, you have to think outside the box. You're not just gonna do everything traditional and set yourself apart. I think those two ideas are counter to each other.
What does success looks like to you?
To me, and I think this is a good thing to circle back to. I think it's just leaving my mark on the world and pointing to those outside the box ideas, and maybe because there's nothing that I can say, right? There's nothing that I can say that hasn't been said as far as the traditional model of success, right? I'm not just I'm no Tony Robbins. I'm not gonna sit there and say work hard and do X, Y, and Z and invest in your 401k and you're retired at 65 and all that stuff. Like, that's all been said. Like, I can't say that any better.
True. I listened to Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
and he's great.
It's all it's great.
He gets you going.
Yeah, but it's all been said. So I want to be the guy that points to less traditional ideas and less mainstream things and say, what about this and what about that? And if somebody's listens and it affects them in a positive way, I would consider that successful.
What are some advice that you could give to someone who's trying to be successful?
I think everybody should have their own definition of success. And the one thing that I believe people should consider in their own definition is what we were talking about earlier is that financial freedom, that not only financial but freedom in a lot of different aspects of life, and being able to not repress the things that you want to do. And if you're able to do that, by all means, what anything else, just block out the noise. If somebody's says you're not successful, you haven't done enough, and you're able to do the things that you want to do. Now, don't get me wrong, like in order to do the things that you want to do in today's world, you're more than likely gonna have to work and put in some time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like if you want to be successful in what you're doing, whether that's acting, becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, you have to want it and you have to put in the work. It is not going to come to you.
Yeah. And so I would say the freedom to do the things that you want to do, and the passion of learning more and more about the things that you're doing. If you don't have that passion to just continually learn, I think that's just kind of like innate in like human biology, is that we're curious animals. And if you lose that curiosity and you lose that passion to learn and discuss and grow, then it's going to wither away at you. So I think those two things, the freedom and the curiosity, is paramount to success. And I think if you're motivated on those two fronts, you're good.
I think that's excellent advice, Josh. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. We will see you next time. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.